You won't believe what happened when my son tried to pay $25,000 for gifts at a luxury store right in front of me and my daughter-in-law. One minute, we were surrounded by gold jewelry and designer clothes, and the next, the entire store went silent. The saleswoman stopped everything. My son's face turned white, and what he saw on his phone made him collapse to the floor. Want to know the shocking truth that left us all speechless? Trust me, you'll want to see how this story ends. It's a Saturday afternoon, and I find myself standing under the glittering chandeliers of the fanciest luxury store in town. You know, the kind where the air smells like expensive perfume? The salespeople glide around in tailored suits, and the price tags have more zeros than my old calculator ever dreamed of. I'm not sure how I got roped into this, but here I am, trailing behind my son Grant and his wife Tessa as they embark on what can only be described as a shopping marathon. Grant, bless his heart, is practically beaming with pride. He's got that look on his face, the one he used to have as a little boy when he'd saved up his allowance to buy me a Mother's Day card. Only now, instead of a card, he's piling up new clothes, gold jewelry, designer sandals for Tessa. I mean, Tessa was practically getting a new wardrobe and a jewelry box to match. Every time she spotted something sparkly or silky, she'd toss it into the growing mountain of shopping bags, barely glancing at the price. "Oh, this would look perfect for the gala next month," she'd say, holding up a dress that cost more than my first car. Grant would just nod, his chest puffed out, eager to please. Meanwhile, I'm standing there in my vintage Reed old blouse, clutching my purse like it's a security blanket. I'd worn my most comfortable shoes, the ones with the little scuffs on the toes, because I knew there'd be a lot of walking. I didn't expect to feel so invisible. The salespeople barely glanced my way, their eyes trained on Tessa and her endless requests. "Do you have this in a smaller size? Can you bring me the matching earrings? Oh, and I'll take those sandals in both colors." It was like watching a tornado of luxury sweep through the store, and I was just a bystander hoping not to get blown away. I tried to make small talk with Grant as he trailed behind his wife, arms full of boxers and bags. "So, how's work?" I asked, but he barely heard me over the sound of Tessa's latest discovery, a gold bracelet that sparkled like the 4th of July. "Isn't this gorgeous?" she squealed, holding it up for him to see. He nodded, his eyes glazed over, and handed his credit card to the saleswoman Camille, without a second thought. I couldn't help but feel a little out of place. I mean, I've always been practical. I grew up in a time when you saved for a rainy day, patched your jeans, and only splurged on something new, if it was your birthday or maybe Christmas. My idea of a shopping spree is finding a good deal at the outlet mall, not dropping thousands of dollars on a single afternoon. But here I was, surrounded by silk, gold, and leather, watching Grant spend money like it was going out of style. Then, just as I was starting to wonder if I should sneak off to the shoe department and treat myself to a new pair of flats, Tessa turned to me. She had that mischievous glint in her eye, the one that always made me a little nervous. She looked me up and down, taking in my well-loved blouse and sensible shoes, and let out a laugh that echoed through the store. "Let your mom keep wearing her old clothes. She doesn't need anything new," she said loud enough for Camille and half the customers to hear. Ouch! Ever been roasted in public by your own family? It stings a little, doesn't it? For a split second, I felt my cheeks flush. I wanted to shrink into the carpet, or maybe hide behind a rack of coats. But then I caught my reflection in one of the store's many mirrors. There I was, standing tall, my purse clutched tight, my shoes scuffed, but comfortable. And you know what? I smiled, because at least my shoes didn't pinch and my blouse had been with me through thick and thin. It might not be designer, but it had character, and so did I. I looked at Grant, hoping for a little backup, but he just shrugged, caught between his wife's laughter and my silent plea. For a moment, I wondered if he even noticed how I felt. Was I just the tag-along mom, the one who didn't belong in this world of luxury and excess? Or was I still the woman who'd taught him the value of $1, who'd patched his jeans and made his favorite meals from scratch? As the laughter died down and Camille returned to her whirlwind of activity, I took a deep breath and decided not to let it get to me. After all, I'd survived worse than a little public teasing. I'd raised a family, balanced a checkbook, and made a home out of nothing more than love and determination. If Tessa wanted to laugh at my old clothes, let her. I knew who I was, and I didn't need a gold bracelet or a designer dress to prove it. So I stood a little taller, adjusted my purse, and watched as Grant and Tessa continued their shopping spree. Maybe I wasn't the star of the show, but I was still part of the story. And who knows? Maybe the best was yet to come. Asterisk. If you thought the shopping spree was a spectacle, just wait until you hear what happened at the checkout. After what felt like hours of browsing, trying on, and oohing and ohing over every shiny thing in the store, Grant and Tessa finally decided they were done. Camille, who by now looked like she'd run a marathon, started ringing up the mountain of gifts. I watched as she scanned dress after dress, box after box. Each beep of the register sounding like a cash register in a cartoon cha-ching, cha-ching. The pile on the counter looked like a display at a department store, not a single family's shopping haul. I couldn't help but wonder if we'd need a moving truck just to get it all home. As Camille tallied up the final total, she paused, looked at the screen, and then looked back at us with wide eyes. "That will be $25,000, she announced, her voice just a touch higher than before. I nearly choked on my breath. $25,000. For a moment, I thought she must have made a mistake, maybe added an extra zero by accident. But no, Tessa just smiled, pleased as punch. And Grant, well, he looked like he was about to take a victory lap. He reached into his wallet and pulled out his shiny black credit card, holding it up with a flourish like he was James Bond about to order a martini. I half expected him to say, "Charge, it's shaken, not stirred." He handed the card to Camille, who took it with a practiced smile. She slid it through the machine and we all waited. You know that moment at the register when you're just hoping everything goes smoothly? I've been there more times than I can count. Silently praying that my card won't be declined, especially when there's a line behind me. But Grant, he looked as confident as ever, certain that nothing could go wrong. Then Camille's smile faltered. She glanced at the screen, then at Grant, then back at the screen. Do you know that look? The one that says, "Houston, we have a problem." She tried the card again, this time a little slower, as if that might change the outcome. Still nothing. The air in the store seemed to shift, the background music suddenly too loud, the lights a little too bright. Tessa, who had been admiring her soon-to-be new bracelet, looked up, sensing something was off. "I'm sorry, sir," Camille said, her voice now barely above a whisper. "Your card is blocked. You could have heard a pin drop." The whole store seemed to freeze. Tessa's jaw dropped, her eyes wide with disbelief. Grant's face turned the color of my favorite lipstick fire engine red. He looked from Camille to the card as if he couldn't quite believe what he was hearing. For a moment, I thought he might try to argue, insist there was some mistake. But all he could do was stammer. "Blocked. That can't be right. Try it again." Camille, ever the professional, tried once more. Still nothing. She handed the card back, her expression apologetic but firm. "I'm afraid it's not going through, sir. Now, I know I shouldn't have found it funny, but I couldn't help myself. I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing out loud. I mean, who hasn't had a card declined at least once in their life?" I remember the time I tried to buy groceries and my card was declined because I'd forgotten to transfer money from savings. I wanted to disappear into the floor, but the cashier just smiled and said, "It happens to everyone." But this was on a whole other level. $25,000, a luxury store full of people, and Grant's card was blocked. If there was ever a time to pray at the checkout, this was it. Tessa, who had been so smug just moments before, was suddenly silent. She looked at Grant, then at Camille, then back at the mountain of gifts. I could see the wheels turning in her head, trying to figure out what to do next. Grant, meanwhile, was frantically pulling out his phone, tapping away at his banking app as if he could will the money back into his account. Camille, bless her, tried to make the best of an awkward situation. "Would you like to try another card?" she asked, her voice gentle. But Grant just shook his head, his hands trembling. "No, no, this one should work. There must be some mistake." He looked at me, his eyes pleading for help. But what could I do? I was just the mom in the old blouse standing on the sidelines while the drama unfolded. The other customers in the store were starting to notice. I could feel their eyes on us, some sympathetic, others just curious. One woman even whispered to her friend, "Can you believe it? All that shopping in his card doesn't work." Wanted to tell her that money isn't everything. That sometimes the best things in life can't be bought, but I kept my mouth shut. This was Grant's moment, for better or worse. As the silence stretched on, I realized that this was one of those moments we'd laugh about some days, just not today. For now, all I could do was stand by and watch as Grant tried to salvage his. Pride Tessa tried to hide her embarrassment, and Camille tried to keep the line moving. And me, well, I just kept thinking, at least my shoes are comfortable, and at least I'm not the one with the blocked card. The tension in the store was thick enough to cut with a knife. Grant, still red-faced from the card fiasco, fumbled with his phone, his fingers shaking as he opened his banking app. I watched him, my heart pounding in my chest, not just from embarrassment, but from that deep motherly worry that never really goes away, no matter how old your children get. He stared at the screen, his eyes darting back and forth as if he was searching for a lifeline. Then, out of nowhere, he let out a gasp so loud it echoed off the marble floors. Before I could even process what was happening, he staggered backward. And no joke, collapsed right onto the floor, his phone clattering beside him. For a split second, I thought the worst. My mind raced. Was he having a heart attack? A stroke? Should I call 911? I rushed to his side, dropping my purse and kneeling down, my hands trembling as I reached for his shoulder. "Are you okay? Talk to me," I pleaded, my voice cracking with fear. Camille, who had been trying to maintain her composure, rushed over with a bottle of water while Tessa just stood there, frozen, her mouth hanging open in shock. The other shoppers had stopped pretending not to notice and were now openly staring, some with concern, others with that morbid curiosity people get when they sense drama unfolding. But as I leaned over Grant, I realized he was breathing fast and shallow, but breathing. He wasn't clutching his chest or showing any signs of pain. Instead, he was just staring at his phone, his eyes wide with disbelief, his face drained of all color. I picked up the phone, glancing at the screen, and my own heart skipped a beat. His bank account, which should have been more than enough to cover the shopping spree, was showing a balance of exactly zero. Not a single dollar left. Every last penny gone. For a moment, none of us spoke. The reality of the situation hung in the air like a bad smell. Grant finally managed to sit up, his hands shaking as he tried to make sense of what he was seeing. "It's all gone," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Everything. Someone's taken everything." He scrolled through his transaction history. And there it was, a series of withdrawals and transfers he didn't recognize, all within the last hour. It was as if someone had swooped in and emptied his account while we were busy picking out gold bracelets and designer sandals. Fear and panic washed over me in waves. I could see it in Grant's eyes, to the realization that this wasn't just an embarrassing moment at the checkout, but a full-blown crisis. Tessa, who had been so full of confidence and laughter, just minutes before, was now speechless for the first time since I'd met her. She stared at the phone, her face pale, her hands trembling as she clutched her designer purse. Camille, bless her, tried to offer some comfort. "Maybe it's a mistake," she suggested gently. "Sometimes banks freeze accounts for security reasons. You should call them right away." But Grant was already ahead of her, dialing the bank's customer service number with frantic urgency. As he waited on hold, the reality of the situation began to sink in. The shopping bags, the jewelry, the shoes, all of it suddenly seemed so trivial compared to the loss staring us in the face. I could feel the eyes of the other shoppers on us, their whispers swirling around like a storm. Did you see what happened? I heard his account was wiped out. That's why you never trust online banking. The whole scene felt surreal, like we'd been dropped into the middle of a reality TV show, only there were no cameras, no commercial breaks, and no one coming to save the day. As the minutes ticked by, Grant finally got through to a representative. I listened as he tried to explain what had happened, his voice growing more desperate with each passing second. No, I didn't authorize those transfers. No, I don't recognize those charges. Yes, I need to freeze my account. Please, just help me. The bank promised to investigate, but there were no immediate answers, no quick fixes. The money was gone, at least for now, and there was nothing any of us could do but wait and hope for the best. In the midst of all this chaos, I couldn't help but feel a strange mix of emotions. There was fear, of course fear for my son, for his future, for the security he'd worked so hard to build. There was panic, too, as I imagined the bills that would go unpaid, the plans that would have to be put on hold. But there was also a tiny, almost guilty flicker of, I told you so. I'd always tried to teach Grant the value of money, the importance of being careful, of not taking things for granted. Maybe this was the universe's way of reminding us all that life can change in an instant, that nothing is guaranteed. No matter how shiny your credit card or how expensive your shopping bags. Tessa, still silent, finally looked at me, her eyes brimming with tears. For the first time, I saw her not as the glamorous, confident woman who always seemed to have it all, but as someone just as vulnerable and scared as the rest of us. Camille, sensing the moment had passed for any more shopping, quietly began to put the items back, a professional mask slipping just enough to show a hint of sympathy. And me? Well, as I helped Grant to his feet and gathered my things, I couldn't help but think, maybe it's time to treat myself to a new blouse after all. Not because I needed to keep up with anyone, but because sometimes, in the middle of chaos, you have to find a little joy for yourself. Maybe that's the real lesson in all of this. Life is unpredictable. Money comes and goes, but a good blouse and a good laugh can get you through just about anything. Asterisk. After the whirlwind at the luxury store, we found ourselves wandering the mall in a daze, the three of us moving like survivors of a shipwreck. Grant, still pale and shaken, kept glancing at his phone as if the numbers in his bank account might magically reappear. Tessa, who had started the day with a sparkle in her eye and a spring in her step, now walked quietly beside him, her designer purse clutched a little tighter, her head bowed. As for me, I was just grateful we were all in one piece, even if our pride in Grant's bank account had taken a beating. We ended up at a little coffee shop tucked away in a corner, the kind with mismatched mugs and the smell of fresh pastries in the air. It was a far cry from the glitz and glamour of the luxury store, but somehow it felt just right. We sat down. At a small table by the window, the afternoon sun casting a warm glow over everything. Grant ordered 3 coffees, his voice still a little shaky. And when the waitress brought them over, he looked at me with a sheepish smile. "Mom, I'm so sorry about today," he said, his eyes full of regret. "I just wanted to do something special for her, you know." I never thought something like this could happen. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand, feeling the familiar roughness of his palm. The same hand that used to clutch mine when he was little and afraid of the dark. "It's all right, sweetheart," I said softly. "We're all safe, and that's what matters. Money comes and goes, but family is forever." Tessa, who had been staring into her coffee as if it might offer her some wisdom, finally looked up. Her eyes were red, but there was a new softness in her expression, a humility I hadn't seen before. "I'm sorry, too," she said quietly. "I guess I got a little carried away. I didn't mean to make you feel left out or to act like I was better than anyone. I don't know. I wanted to feel special." I smiled at her, feeling a wave of understanding wash over me. We all want to feel special sometimes, don't we? Whether it's a new dress, a shiny piece of jewelry, or just a little attention from the people we love. But in that moment, sitting together over coffee, I realized that the most special thing of all was right in front of me. My family, flaws and all. We sat there for a while, sipping our coffee and sharing stories. Grant told us about the first time he ever got a paycheck. How he'd spent half of it on a bouquet of flowers for me and the other half on a pizza for himself. Tessa confessed that she'd always been a little intimidated by me, that she worried I thought she was too flashy or spoiled. I laughed and told her about the time I tried to impress my own mother-in-law by baking a pie from scratch, only to burn it to a crisp and set off the smoke alarm. We all laughed then, the kind of laughter that bubbles up from deep inside and makes you feel lighter, as if the weight of the world has been lifted, if only for a moment. As we talked, I realized something important. Sometimes life gives you exactly what you need, even if it's not what you expected. We'd gone to the store looking for luxury, for things that would make us feel important or loved. But what we found instead was a reminder that love and family matter more than anything you can buy. The fancy clothes, the gold jewelry, the designer sandals, they're all just things. Nice things, sure, but they can't hold your hand when you're scared. Or make you laugh when you want to cry, or sit with you over coffee after a hard day. And you know what? After we finished our coffee, I decided to do something for myself. I wandered into a little boutique next to the coffee shop. Nothing fancy, just a cozy place with racks of clothes and a friendly saleswoman who greeted me like an old friend. I found a blouse, soft, comfortable, and just my style. It wasn't designer, and it didn't cost a fortune, but when I tried it on, I felt good. Really good. I bought it on sale, of course, because old habits die hard. And as I walked out of the store, I felt a little lighter, a little brighter, and a lot more like myself. When I rejoined Grant and Tessa, I twirled in my new blouse, striking a pose that made them both laugh. "What do you think?" I asked, grinning. Grant gave me a thumbs up, and Tessa smiled, her eyes shining with genuine warmth. "You look beautiful," she said, and for the first time all day, I believed it. We left them all together, arm in arm, the sun setting behind us, and the chaos of the day fading into memory. We didn't have bags full of luxury goods, but we had something better, each other. And a story we'd be telling for years to come. And as we walked to the car, I thought to myself, a little self-care never hurt anyone. Sometimes the best gifts aren't the ones you buy, but the ones you find in the moments you share. The laughter you create and the love that holds you together, no matter what life throws your way. Asterisk. So, ladies, next time you're feeling overlooked, remember, karma has a way of evening the score. And if you enjoyed this story, hit that subscribe button. Let's keep sharing laughs, lessons, and a little bit of retail therapy together. What would you have done at that checkout? Tell me in the comments.